Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Abby Ilamoka, and she is the United Methodist Women's Spiritual Growth Coordinator. And so she will begin our message this morning. Abby.
Good morning, St. Matthews. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk with you a little bit about the United Methodist Women worldwide. I'm going to start by saying it's interesting that some of the most impactful events in our world begin in relatively inconspicuous ways. So, for example, the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, which changed the world forever. Other examples, I think of Martin Luther King Day next week and Rosa Parks at the back of the bus. And coming closer to home, I think of myself 26 years ago when I lived in London with my family. Got a phone call at 5 o'clock a.m. London time, which is midnight DC time, and that changed our lives forever. We moved to Connecticut and have stayed in the United States since. Well, it's sort of similar with the United Methodist Women. It all started in Boston, Massachusetts, about 150 years ago. Two women, wives of missionaries in India, got together one evening, one rainy evening, and talked a little bit about the plight of women and girls in the country of India. The first slide here summarizes who the United Methodist Women are. So backing up to slide 2, it is the world's largest denominational faith organization for women, with over 800,000 members, whose mission is to foster spiritual growth, to do mission, and develop leaders. They also advocate for social justice. They raise about $20 million every year for projects for women, children, and youth. Their purpose statement is on the next slide. United Methodist Women shall be a community of women whose purpose is to know God and to experience freedom as whole persons through Jesus Christ, to develop a creative, supportive fellowship, and to expand concepts of mission through participation in the global ministries of the church. And so back to the origins here. Those two women did not know what they were starting, but after that first meeting in Boston, more meetings followed, and more women joined in, each one contributing $1 a year to help with the missionary work in India. 6 months later, they sent 2 women to India, a female doctor and a female teacher. This was partly because women in India could not see male doctors, and there were no female doctors, essentially. And girls could not be taught by male teachers, and so girls did not get an education. These women had raised enough money to support these 2 individuals, the doctor and the teacher. They had organized bake sales, they had sold eggs, they gave sacrificially. Ultimately, later on, by 1973, the women's missionary societies from 8 different denominations, faith denominations, combined to become the United Methodist Women. Missionaries were ultimately sent all over the world: India, China, Mexico, countries of South America, Bulgaria, Sierra Leone, Japan, essentially all over the world. What are our stories today? Well, we have expanded our advocacy to include threats to the environment. We continue to work on issues like homelessness, immigration, lack of affordable health care, racial justice, public education, the plight of the elderly, children and youth, and domestic violence. Human trafficking is a big one, and the role of women in society. The United Methodist Women supports almost 100 national mission institutions worldwide and international projects in over 100 countries. Next year, in 2019, the United Methodist Women will celebrate 150 years of mission and advocacy. It is a connectional system. So here at St. Matthew's, we have a local unit, and many other churches, United Methodist churches, have local units, local groups of United Methodist women, varying in size, anything from 3 to 100. I believe we're about 100 here at St. Matthew's. So that's the lowest level of the hierarchy. The next level up is the district, and we are part of the Washington East District, I believe. There is a district level, there is a conference level, and eventually a national office, which is based in New York City. So it is a very connected system. We work together with the district and the conference levels, and there are meetings, regional and national. This is my final slide. It gives you a little bit more information. You can visit the United Methodist Women's website for more information if you're interested in joining or registering. I also want to acknowledge that the information used on the slides came from the Virginia district of the United Methodist Women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abby, very much. As you have heard, the United Methodist Women are an active group with 150 strong years of focus on social justice issues. That is what got them started, and that remains to this day a driving force. Women in most societies, including this one, have had to be outspoken to gain a voice in the public arena. The right to vote, the right to control their childbearing, the right to attend college, the right to choose careers, the right to purchase a home, the right to be free from violence. The list is long and old and also as modern as today. Our current mandated mission focus from the National United Methodist Women is climate change, mass incarceration, and domestic violence. Real issues that concern everyone. We address them somewhat in this church, providing a spectrum of Christmas gifts for the children who have one or both parents incarcerated, but perhaps we are challenged to go a step higher and see what we can do to help the parents. We address domestic violence frequently in taking in women as residents in both our in-church shelter and the St. Matthew's Housing Corporation facilities from a domestic violence center that is only a few miles away, maybe 5 miles from us. But perhaps we could have stepped up a week ago when this center was in the daily news for the devastatingly deplorable condition it had fallen into. Perhaps we can make a greater effort to counsel, tutor, clothe, educate, and socially remediate some of these residents who come into our care. They need to learn how to manage money, often how to have a friend and how to be a friend. When I had a role in that program, I took a resident out to dinner and spent a couple of hours chatting with them. IHOP works. You know, you don't have to go to any big $50 a plate dinner. In the course of a year, every resident enjoyed a few opportunities like that. Church-centered women, Christ-centered women, God-centered women have long been in the forefront of lifting up the knowledge of their epiphany, that aha moment, that their wants and needs and voice are as valued and validated as those of men. We would not have the wisdom and joy of Chelsea in our midst Were it not for women who struggled for the right of a woman to get a college education, Abby cited for the right to get education at all was what started this, for let girls get educated. But we are blessed with the heritage, then we have to move forward with it. She became a minister, she's becoming a minister, which women still can't do in some denominations. So as United Methodists, it is we rise to the challenge and we step forward. Have you had your own epiphany, your aha moment, that every woman in your life is equal in value to every man in your life? Men, can you stand beside what they used to call it, the little woman, who bore you? The ones who married you, who bore your children, the grandmother or aunt or sister or daughter you have loved with all of your heart and mind and soul. Can you stand beside her and utterly and sincerely say, you rock, and you are a rock in the foundation of my life? Can you tell her your life would be incredibly darkened without her? Can you approach the coming Lenten season with the awareness that to know God is to know love? Can you be aware that as Ash Wednesday falls on Valentine's Day this year, that this is the truly perfect year to turn your ear to hearken to the message of God's love? At yesterday's Epiphany brunch, Reverend Kendrick Weaver, a former pastor here, taught us something about being an ear, a listening ear, an ear that is listening to God. Can we all live enough, grow enough, love enough to truly bring God back into our lives and our church and our community? Will you live enough and love enough to do that? Give up putting people down. Give up forever and always the feral unkindnesses we unleash on those we disagree with. The news is frightening to listen to, frightening to listen to. People are turning so viciously on each other. May we live differently. May we give up some of this anger. May we understand that God is here. He's here, right there in the pew with you. Do you feel God's presence? John Wesley, our much valued founder of Methodism, put it well when he said, we may think differently, we may live differently, we may dress differently, but can we not love one another? This is the very essence of being a Christian, a child of God. We love. Let us live that. Let us remember that when Valentine's Day comes this year and we come to church to get ashes on our forehead, ashes made from the burned palms of last year, let us remember to listen to God, to live like Jesus, to love one another. I pray that many of our United Methodist women will be here this year on Ash Wednesday, perhaps to acknowledge the imperfections of the world, perhaps to sorrow at the death of Jesus, perhaps to rise with a renewed spirit of being truly in mission to help others, remembering that what we do to the least of these, we do to God. Let us remember that love came down at Christmas, leading us to the seashore to find a renewed spirit to rise to the call to serve. Let us love all. In Christ's name.